Really quick, guys. Welcome to the Real Papa Gut Podcast, episode 4. Now, I know a lot of you guys live are saying, "Papa, isn't this 3? You're confused. You're disjointed. You don't know what you're doing. You don't know what's going on." I'm gonna tell you what's going on. About a month or two ago, we created a podcast, and we did 3 episodes of it, and we stopped doing it. There was a lot going on in life. We weren't able to maintain it. Whatever. The first episode was kind of bad. We weren't really feeling it. It was okay. It was introductory. It was a mess. Second and third episodes we thought were really, really good. And so we decided to reopen the podcast, and we made our first episode, which was about Free Britney, which was such a great podcast. We had so much fun, and it was great. And then I went to the other things, and I was like, we have these 2 podcasts. They're a month old, but they're really relevant because they're about EDP and James Charles. So I relabeled those to 2 and 3. They were actually 2 and 3. That was the good part about it. And so we released those on this channel. We had previously released them on a different channel, so most of the people haven't seen them. Okay? I have the burps. Excuse me. I'm sorry for being unprofessional.
Taco night.
Yeah, we had tacos and an acai bowl, so I'm sorry for my unprofessionalism. And so now we're picking up where we left off. This is episode 4 of the Real Papa Gut Podcast. And for those of you who don't know, the Real Papa Gut Podcast is where the 2 of us get together, and we do the process of Papa Gut. This is what we always used to do. We would sit down, we would discuss all our topics, and we would come out the other side with a great point. And she is, she's definitely the what do they used to call it? Behind every great man is a great woman, or non-binary. But not here. Anyway, today we're going to diagnose Trisha Paytas. Now, for context, Mama Gut here is a behavioral specialist. She's very, very, very intelligent. She understands the DSM, but I have
a master's in social work. So as a social worker, you don't diagnose people, but you're expected to understand the DSM, diagnoses, symptoms, and, treat people through therapy with those symptoms.
Exactly what she said. And so what we're going to do is we're going to diagnose Trisha Paytas. Now, she has a couple of her own diagnoses already that she's thrown out there. We don't know if they're legit or not. One, because she's faked them for clout, like dissociative identity disorder. When that was big, she all of a sudden had it. And even gender dysphoria. Now, we think that there's something going on there. The problem is that Trisha Paytas is a very, in my opinion, manipulative person, more so than I even thought. And so I wouldn't doubt it that she's shopped around for a doctor to find her diagnosis that she wanted to have, honestly. And even if she's going to a decent mental health professional, Trisha seems like the kind of person that knows what to say to a doctor so that they'll feel like they got the correct information. Right? You understand what I'm saying?
I understand what you're saying, but also she's just stupid and can be saying anything.
That's also true. Maybe she's just not going to a doctor. She always seems to be on and off her meds, this and anything. She's just stupid. It's so funny. That threw me for a loop. And so just something that you guys need to know is that therapy only works if you let it work. If you go to therapy, you're open and you're honest with your therapist, and you have a good therapist, what you'll do is you'll go to a therapist, you'll talk to them about your feelings, they'll ask you questions, and then they will help you come to the conclusion that, honestly, most therapists already know. The first day in, a therapist usually kind of knows what's going on with you, and then they kind of try to help you realize what's going on, help you figure out your patterns, and figure out how to help you with your situation, which also, and this is off topic, but can potentially lead to abuse from your therapist. If you have a shitty therapist, they can lead you in a direction. They have a lot of mental power over people.
Exactly. I can only speak to the social work profession, but what we're taught is you're really just guiding the person to solve their own problems. You're giving them the tools and the knowledge to figure their own shit out.
Exactly. So let's start. What do you got? This is if this podcast stinks, it's Mama Gut's fault. She organized everything.
So
don't blame me.
The first thing I want to look at is diagnoses that she's said that she's had. So out of that list, we have gender dysphoria because she says that she's trans or gender neutral. We have schizoaffective disorder, bipolar, and dissociative identity disorder.
So you remember all those on top of your head?
They're right there.
Where?
In front of you. On the book that I told you.
Holy moly, they're on a book. I don't even know that this book was here. She hid it. All right. So, do you want to start with what? Gender identity disorder? Or
yeah, we can look at that. So something that's important to know just about, looking at the DSM is that it's updated, every couple of years. This last one, I think, went into effect in 2014, maybe. When it comes to gender dysphoria, something that's important to know is that according to the World Health Organization, gender dysphoria is no longer a psychological disorder.
It's a sexual
but it
health
is now
condition.
a sexual health condition.
Which, to be absolutely honest with you, and this isn't necessarily the focus, but I want to give my piece on that. Because here's the thing. Gender dysphoria, in my opinion, should be maintained as a mental disorder. ADHD is a mental disorder, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have ADHD. The issue isn't that something is labeled a mental disorder. The issue is people utilize that mental disorder to be disparaging towards trans people. I don't see being trans as a sexual health condition. It sounds like something that's like a mental disorder. It doesn't invalidate transness. Would you invalidate me for having ADHD? No, you wouldn't invalidate most people for their mental disorder. You wouldn't invalidate somebody with autism. That's a mental disorder? Or is that not?
I think it's classified in here.
Okay. You wouldn't invalidate those people. We specifically only invalidate trans people as having a mental disorder. That's it. We just exclusively target trans people with that. So I don't think it matters what the diagnosis is. They're always going to be targeted. I think that the recategorization was a bad thing because I think it kind of downplays how seriously mentally distressful gender dysphoria can be for somebody.
And that's the thing is that, psychological disorders are looked at very negatively by society when it's something that I had a hard time coming to understand that like a diagnosis is just meant so that you could get treatment.
Right.
It doesn't matter why you're exhibiting like whatever symptoms. What's important is that, like in our system, we need to have something that we're billing for. So that's why what happened?
I'm sorry. Somebody just said I wouldn't invalidate you for ADHD. I would invalidate you for having a dump truck with no permit. And I just I'm so sorry. It just made me laugh.
So anyways, we need something to bill for. So that's why a lot of times you'll go to like a therapist or whatever, and you'll get diagnosed with adjustment disorder. And basically everyone has adjustment disorder because different things happen in your life and they cause stress for you. And sometimes you have trouble adjusting to that stress or that change. Yeah. But adjustment disorder allows that professional to bill for a service.
Right. So you get like diagnosed a lot of times so that you get this help you need rather than the diagnoses necessarily, if that makes sense.
Exactly. So that's why my personal opinion on the whole thing of gender dysphoria being changed to a sexual health condition, I think that's more based on society's view of mental health disorders rather than treating the psychological stuff going on for that person.
I talked to somebody. He was a mental health professional who dealt exclusively or heavily with trans people, and I forget his name. He was a TikToker. Really smart guy. We talked about it. And I'm like, I think it should be classified as a mental disorder. He's like, I don't think so. I said, well, what if we reclassified it as like gender anxiety disorder? And it was just under the umbrella of anxiety. He's like, yeah, that sounds good. And I feel like that's the move we should have went with, rather than like completely reclassifying it as a sexual health condition. Maybe we reclassify it as an anxiety disorder because it's very heavily associated with anxiety. Anyway, we're a little off topic. Let's talk about Trisha Paytas.
So let's get into gender dysphoria. So the big number in parentheses that I have written down is what the actual page number is.
Oh, 486. Holy garbanzo beans. So, okay. So gender dysphoria. Do you want me to read this?
You don't have to. So just so everyone knows how the DSM works, there's the overall view of the diagnoses. There's different sections. So like bipolar, for example, we'll have that like we're seeing for the gender dysphoria and then broken down into all the different categories. So what we're going to look at is we don't have to read all of this stuff, but go to the next page.
Yeah, this.
And so here, is the list of symptoms that a person with these diagnoses would be exhibiting. So we're going to go down to the gender dysphoria in adolescents and adults.
Children? Okay, right here, adolescents and adults. Oh, very cool. This is so interesting.
So,
little history. Trisha claimed, this is just something that I have to get out. Trisha claimed to have gender dysphoria, got railed by the LGBT community, stopped identifying, then found materials to educate herself on it. Then she came back saying that she had gender dysphoria again and identified, I think, as non-binary or something like that, either non-binary or gender non-conforming. I have a little bit of a gripe. She made a video and I commented on it in her video where she apologized to Ethan. And she had mentioned, she's like, I'm going to have an all-girls podcast. Now, I pointed that out as her instantly admitting, like, listen, she slipped. She identifies as a girl, and people are like, no, she uses she, they, and he pronouns. Here's the thing. I know it's very deceiving, but I'm more educated on trans issues than a lot of you guys actually think. And so when you look at gender identification or the gender, we'll call it blanket. I call it the trans triangle. Right? You have your gender identity, gender expression, and pronouns, right? Those things are generally exclusive. For most people like myself, those things are all the same. I'm biologically a man, gender identification is a man, gender expression is a man, pronouns are he, him, all that jazz. Trisha calling herself a girl isn't a pronoun. That is a gender identity. She's admitting that she's a girl, and she has no dysphoria or distress associated with calling herself a girl. Girl is not a pronoun. That's a gender identity. So that's what I was specifically talking about. And it's a slip up, and I know it's small, and maybe it's nothing, but to me, in my experience, the trans people that I've talked to, they don't make those types of slip ups because they have a legitimate amount of distress associated with their gender identity and their biological sex not matching.
I would also point out when it comes to that, I mean, I didn't watch whatever you were watching or talking about, but, doing an all-girl something, that's where we get into the conversation of, like, the hetero or homogeneity. And having an all-girls podcast is, like, talking to a group of people of, like, the same experience and likeliness so that you could all identify in one way when talking about something.
I get what you're saying. And she's talking about, this is a big brain topic. I don't know if I can communicate to the audience. An all-girls podcast is very homogeneous, right? Homogeneity. It's all women, and so the heterogeneity, it talks about, it's just so hard.
So homogeneity is the sameness in a group,
and heterogeneity is the differentness in a group. And like saying an all girls podcast is reinforcing like all of the sameness, the same identification, the same perspective. Whereas if she was trans, which I don't believe she is, I think she's bullshitting for clout. She wouldn't, like, there would be more heterogeneity. But I don't think that Trisha has any thought outside of a traditional woman's.
No, and like this might be a little polar, but I would say that like it would be more, to me at least, more understanding to have like a trans woman on an all girls panel rather than someone who was born female and identifying as others.
But but not even just that, who has identified as female for the majority of her life, so she has no true real experiences as somebody who's like gender non-conforming. Whereas a trans person that transitioned in like their early 20s and lived like 10 years of their life as a woman, they have an interesting perspective where they identify as a woman, but they have a lot of male experiences from the past. And this is an issue that trans people don't get to really express, is that like, oftentimes in life, every one of us will do things based on our experience, right? So like, I'm going to boil it down simply. Like, let's just say you're not going to touch a hot stove because the stove is hot, right? Well, trans people don't have the ability to have that reference in the past. When it comes to, let's say specifically when it comes to dating, you may be a trans woman that grew up as a boy, identifying as a boy, and when it comes to interacting with somebody else, you don't really know how you're supposed to interact necessarily, or the way that you feel you expected to react, because you didn't go through that experience as a child as a woman, if that makes sense. I think I did an okay job explaining that. Anyway, let's get into the diagnoses of Trisha Paytas.
All right, so let's look at this. So people who have gender dysphoria are going to be showing symptoms as listed.
Okay.
So in section A, we have a marked incongruence between one's experienced or expressed gender and assigned gender of at least 6 months duration as manifested by at least two of the following. So what's that saying is that they have to have like disagree with the gender they're assigned, what they want to be, in one of the following ways.
For 6 months.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So wanting to get rid of your primary or secondary sex characteristics.
Would we say that she has that? I don't think so.
So here's one of the things. Now, of course, especially when it comes to gender dysphoria, the person that you're looking at is the expert on their feelings. But based on Trisha's behavior,
we can't trust her expertise on her own feelings because she's an emphatic fucking liar.
Not even that. Literally, I feel like behavior is very black and white. Now, when someone exhibits behaviors, that is typically a form of communication. So what Trisha is communicating to me through her behavior is that she's not uncomfortable with the characteristics that are traditionally female.
Sure.
On her body.
What I will say, and this is something that you came up with a while ago that did blow my mind. there does seem to be a bit of distress associated with her associating femininity with over-sexualizing herself for OnlyFans.
Mm-hmm.
And
not for OnlyFans, for her whole life.
Well, yeah,
Trisha
true, 'cause she's a
started
big social media
as
person.
a teenager working as a hooker, I believe.
Yeah, and so like she associates femininity with being a very overtly sexual, and I think that she's just tired of having to do that.
She's transformed her body for what she defines as success, and she thinks she's going to gain that success through sexual acts. And now what happens is that she's nothing more than a walking blow-up doll, and she probably would like to be more than that in life.
Right.
But because she's altered her body so much, she can't walk away from it. No matter what. If Trisha is wearing a t-shirt and basketball shorts, she's going to look like you want to fuck her.
I mean, not me. She's gross. But I understand what you're saying. Right. And so, like, that's why I think that she likes to dress down and more masculinely. But I wouldn't say that just because you don't want to be sexualized constantly, that really is necessarily grounds to completely re-alter your gender. You can be a woman that dresses more masculinely. And I feel like we're not doing that enough. We're almost invalidating masculine women by, like, in the way in which we validate transness, in the sense where it's like, oh, you're a masculine woman? Like, oh, is that a different gender? Well, why the fuck do women have to be feminine to be women? It's very conflicting.
It is, and that's one of my favorite things about, like, I guess I would say, like, TikTok, like, trans advocates, is that it goes so far that to me it feels like it starts to just go in a circle, and then they start to invalidate themselves.
Yeah, I get what they're saying. So possibly based on all what we just said, maybe she'd have gender dysphoria. I think that she just needs to find a new fucking job.
Well, I want to keep looking at this.
Oh, but she did find one, and then she ruined it. She's a fucking idiot.
Well, no, I want to look at this stuff. So, like, a strong desire to be the other gender. I'm jumping around a little bit.
Well, you went to number 2. I was just telling people number 2. Go ahead.
Strong desire to be of the other gender or some alternative of the gender different from one's assigned gender. So that would make sense.
Does she have a strong desire to rid one's primary and or secondary sex characteristics because of your marked incongruence? Does she have that, do you think?
I don't know. I don't. That's the thing. I don't trust this bitch. I think she's a liar.
So how would that manifest itself for somebody who is having trouble reading the fancy language?
Which number was it?
2.
Number 2, a strong desire. So, like, wanting top surgery or bottom surgery.
Gotcha. And she does absolutely. Oh, she did get top surgery to make her top bigger, which to me suggests that she doesn't have any dysphoria associated with her tits. Now, if she does, it's because they gave her a botched boob job and now her nipples are too high. That would be the only.
Okay, now we're just being mean.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, you're right. I'm sorry.
She's a stupid bitch.
Okay, well now you're being. Okay,
but I feel like physically mean is different.
It's too easy. Okay, fair enough. Okay, listen. Sorry for the joke. That's all I can say. I got nothing else. Let's not examine it. I got nothing else. I'm very sorry. It was too much. I will say it's what turned me off of her Spice account. Okay, anyway. Number 3, a strong desire for the primary and or secondary sex characters of the other person. So that means that they want to have like a penis if they're a woman or a biological woman. Is that what that's basically saying?
I'm getting confused myself right now with the secondary.
I would assume that a strong desire for the primary and or secondary sex characters of the other gender would be like a
yes.
Yeah, it would be like I'm a woman or rather I'm a trans man in her case, but
yes,
I want
and I have
penis.
Dysphoria of this and would change that.
I don't see any of that, and I want you to understand, like I said before, I've seen her up close and personal on her OnlyFans, and you don't see any of this type of distress anywhere.
I think that's something important to remember when you're looking like at this diagnosis is that she is saying to some extent that she's fluctuating in the middle. So these seem to be more between male and female, which I think is a valid thing.
So you're saying that she can say that she's socially trans instead of medically trans.
Yes.
Which is like a very new thing, which to be honest with you, seems kind of goofy because some of these people just don't. I mean, Trisha's just hard to believe. Mm-hmm. That's what it comes down to. It's like one of those things where you literally, somebody could just say whatever they are and that they become that thing. But in Trisha's case, her whole fucking life's been on blast. That's like if tomorrow I decided that I was like a trans woman. You guys would be like, Papa God, we've known you for a fucking year, you idiotic liar. You know what I mean? And that's the uniqueness here is that like we can make these assumptions because she smells like poo. Anyway.
All right. So a strong desire to be treated as the other gender. So with Trisha, again, I don't think that
she has that.
No, but I think that's where, depending on who you're talking to, she can be interpreted as that. But I think that for myself, it would more align with what we were saying on feeling so over-sexualized.
That she just wants to chill. But I feel like somebody who had a strong desire to be the other gender wouldn't portray themselves as a woman that heavily like that. Like, it's one of those things where it's like an obvious sign. It's like, how do you sit here and say that, like, oh, I'm gender non-conforming or whatever, but like you very heavily express yourself as a woman. You don't seem to have any distress associated with any of your characteristics. It just simply seems like you just want to be less like in the glam spotlight. You want to be able to chill a little bit. Mm-hmm. And I think the problem is that you have nobody special and personal to actually do that with, except for Moses now. But historically, nobody has been wanted to be around her, has wanted to be around her. That was a weird sentiment.
We'll get to that.
And that, I think, contributes to just her fundamental loneliness as a person rather than like a gender dysphoria diagnosis.
So, as we said earlier, in Section A, the person with gender dysphoria would be exhibiting 2 of those symptoms from 1 through 6. But they would also be exhibiting...
Did we do all 6?
No, but we're going to skip over
a strong
it.
Conviction that one has typical feelings and reactions of the other gender. I don't think that she has that.
They would also be exhibiting B. So on the next page, just read that first sentence.
So the condition is associated with clinically significant distress or impairment in social, occupational, or other areas of functioning. Certainly not occupational.
Not social.
No, right, because there's nothing socially nothing socially about her wants to be masculine in any capacity or a boy in any capacity. Nothing in her occupation does either. So what other area of functioning does she want to identify? Maybe when they have sex, Moses pretends that she's a boy. But we don't know. Trisha, let us know.
She said that she's dated gay men before, or has at least had sex with them.
Do they pretend that she... Well, I mean, is she lying?
I don't know, because, like...
We have to see. We have to watch Trisha have sex with Moses.
If a gay man was going to have sex with a woman, I honestly...
They're not gay. I'll just be honest.
No, not even that. They wouldn't choose Trisha.
That's fair. They wouldn't choose Trisha.
I'm
choose
sorry.
Trisha.
I'm mean.
That's a little mean. But hey, listen.
So, that's gender dysphoria.
Okay, so we got to...
Does Trisha have it? I don't think so.
Doubtful. The next one is Shingo. Schizophrenia.
Schizoaffective.
It looks
disorder.
like it says Shingo.
I write my Z's in cursive.
All right, page 125, right? So schizophrenia. I'm not entirely sure what schizophrenia is. Can you give us a quick rundown so we don't have to read this whole paragraph?
So look, it says right there, the key features that define psychotic disorders, with schizoaffective disorder is one of them, is delusions, which, she very well may have, hallucinations, and disorganized thinking or speech.
Okay.
Abnormal motor behavior.
I don't think she has that.
No. So, not that one.
Did you skip?
I don't think so. Sorry.
I don't know. I guess there's
schizophrenia.
A lot. Okay, that's her diagnosis that she said that she had.
So she says that she has schizophrenia.
So it says 2 or more of the following. Each presence? Yeah.
Each present for a significant portion of time during a 1-month period. So basically, you're going to be exhibiting these symptoms for a month.
Delusions.
So delusions is thinking like things that just like aren't based in reality.
So, like, in what capacity? Like, because, like, she very clearly thinks that she's very self-absorbed, but that wouldn't...
She is, but so, for example, I had a client when I interned during the senior year of my bachelor's, and it was really interesting. I worked for an LGBT organization, and I ran a group with older LGBT women, and there was this woman there, and I adored her, and every week she would come in and really, like, not decline... Is it decline? I don't know. Get worse and worse. That's not very positive language. But she used to be like, oh, I'm going to the grocery store and they're switching out my cold cuts. And they're taking my bleach and switching it out. And like, she probably did go to the grocery store. The person ringing her up probably did touch her groceries.
Right.
But they didn't switch out her cold cuts.
Right, okay. So
delusions, thoughts not based in reality.
So, like, not thoughts not based in reality, like literal material situations that aren't happening.
Mm-hmm.
So you're saying that that's not the same as her, like, not having a correct perception on, like, her interactions with Ethan. That's not a hallucination or delusion, is that?
I would say that is more of like a social thing. It might
like more like social
possibly be like a
narcissism.
delusion, but when we look at a later
like a
diagnosis,
delusion.
it might make more sense.
Gotcha. So it's not like a clinical delusion. She's delusional, but she's not like, she doesn't have some kind of like delusion in the sense of like a clinical delusion of like, oh, it's not like she's like, Ethan, did you touch my pen? And like Trisha doesn't have a pen. Right?
You know, so like she obviously interprets things differently than what they happen, but I would say that that's more informed by her thought process rather than thinking something not based in reality. I know that's a little bit confusing.
No, I understand exactly what you're saying. So hallucinations.
So that's imagining things
Moses
that aren't
doesn't
there.
exist.
Yeah, right.
Moses doesn't exist, guys.
So hallucinations could be visual and auditory. So the auditory is when like you're hearing voices. So if anyone's from New York and you're walking around in the city and you see the, you know, often the homeless people looking around like
well,
this,
right, because a lot of homeless people
people
are not diagnosed correctly, and we have a horrible homeless problem in New York because we don't have the funding to get people off the streets and into a facility that would help them because we don't give a fuck. And then Andrew Yang talked about it, and everybody like was like, "Oh my god, how insensitive! How insensitive could it be?" Right? Because a homeless person on the street that can't take care of themselves, it's such a terrible thing to say that we need to increase funding so they can have a bed in a hospital for them to get to treatment. Like, what an asshole, right? Anyway, delusions. So maybe the hallucination, rather. She used to think that she was friends with Robin Williams and always talks about how sad she was, even though they never met.
No, that's the thing though. Maybe it's a delusion because maybe they met on a red carpet once or something.
And she's like,
oh my god, because she fucks everyone.
Oh,
do I sound like
god.
her?
Maybe. It's possible. So I don't think that we've seen anything that's like a hallucination. Although she did have some interesting story about how somebody broke into her shit, but I'm not entirely sure.
So with Trisha too, like again, we have to keep in mind her behavior, and her behavior is so extensively attention seeking.
Yes. So is that a hallucination?
I would say that that's lying for attention.
No, okay, so that's not a clinical diagnosis. Okay,
no.
So disorganized speech. I don't think that she has so when she talks really fast and she's all over the place, I wouldn't call that disorganized speech.
No, not at all. Disorganized speech is when like you're saying things and they don't make sense. They don't make sense because she's
wrong, not because she has some kind of like, she just, that's just the way that she is. It's not like a clinical diagnosis in that capacity. I understand what you're saying.
Grossly disorganized or catatonic behavior, so that's just like sitting there like blank stare.
Okay. Which one is that? Grossly disorganized. Okay. All right. And then negative symptoms.
So diminished emotional expression. I don't know what avolition is. That's a big word.
Okay, we can look it up. I think that's what we did to the alcohol back in the 1900s.
That's the abolition.
Let's see. Is a total lack of motivation that makes it hard to get anything done. So Trisha doesn't have that.
She does not have that at all. She has every single desire to get everything done in exactly the way that she wants it.
In the most laziest, hands-off way possible.
Yeah.
Because she's a lazy bitch. Okay, so she has none of these things.
So I honestly, just like in the interest of time and whatnot, I kind of want to get into.
Well, we have a couple other. We have the bipolar and dissociative identity.
Bipolar, quite possibly, she might have.
Well, hold on. Let's explore this. Let's not rush too much through. We got 4 diagnoses. We can do a quick bipolar. Okay, so. Is this the right one? Which one?
Yeah, so a manic episode, that's where like you're experiencing a lot of uppers. So for the everyday person, you're spending all of your money. You're not sleeping. You're having a lot of like risky sex that you don't usually have.
That sounds like Trisha.
You're making decisions that like you wouldn't typically make.
Okay, so that, I don't know if that's her. She just seems like she's always in a, well, maybe, because like there are times where she's on Frenemies and she's just like normal. Well, was on Frenemies because anyway. And then there are times where like we would watch an episode and be like, oh, Trisha's normal. And then the next week it's like, what the fuck just happened? And she's like geared to the top level. And then the next week she's almost like hit a rock bottom sometimes. Mm-hmm. So yeah, maybe she does have, I think that like everybody is pretty fairly acknowledging that like bipolar makes perfect sense for Trisha Paytas.
Yeah, I think so too. I don't think that is completely unreasonable.
Wow.
So that's manic bipolar, then
Did you want to go through other bipolars?
well, yeah, so there's like different like classifications of bipolar. There's also like depressive.
Okay.
So that's when people have like the ups and downs. So when you're in a depressive stage,
Uh-huh.
that's when you're not really doing anything. That's when it's hard to get up and take a shower.
Do you think that Trisha has that problem?
I don't know.
Maybe because you remember that one time she couldn't wipe her asshole all the way and she had toilet paper in it, and then she took that picture for OnlyFans.
I think that's just because she is
She's trashy.
yeah. No, not even trashy. I'm trashy, but I don't walk around
But
showing people the toilet paper in my ass.
that's true. Then she did it. She thought it was funny because
Because men are pigs. That's why.
because men are
She's
pigs and they-
reinforced. That's one of the other problems with her that we could get into another time, but she is constantly reinforced by fucking pig men.
Yeah, it's true. Pigman.
Men are pigs.
Pikmin from the Nintendo universe. You guys don't know who that is. A lot of you are more adult, so let's move on. But no, like, yeah, no, she does get delivery. That's one of the problems is that, like, we the internet causes this problems of, like, people, and I guess even like me, where, like, people shouldn't be popular.
No,
But,
your
like, you get
negative behavior is reinforced,
Yeah.
and it's also reinforced
You get to
in
gather a whole
such.
group of people that believe a particular thing, where, like, in your town, Trisha would be disgusting. But since it's the internet, lots of people will be like, oh my God, I love toilet paper asshole.
No, but that's the thing.
kink shame me.
It's reinforced in such shallow ways. You know, like the behavior is forced by like the amount of views.
Right.
And like you don't even know how many of those views are like, ew, you're disgusting, or oh, I really like you, you're funny. It's just a number. You
I
know
get what you're
I'm
saying. Right. No, okay, now I understand what you're saying. So when you remove the people, like, we're not even talking about comments or anything. It's just likes. Like, I might like something because I think it's attractive or gross or interesting.
Like,
I
how
might
many
want to just see
things-
more of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How many things have we showed each other that we're like, look at this idiot, or look how disgusting?
Yeah, then you
But
throw a
we're
like on there.
reinforcing that person's behavior.
Because they're going to interpret it how they want. So they'll be like, oh, this person's liked me. They like it. Some people just like it so that they can look at it later and show people.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, Trisha gets all this validation for nothing.
Yeah.
The burp. Anyway, okay.
But yeah, so for bipolar, I think we've definitely seen evidence of manic episodes. She's talked about being manic. I don't know if we've really ever seen depressive phases from her. We've definitely seen her at, I would call, baseline,
Angry phases.
where she is calm.
Do you think her depressive phases could manifest themselves in, like, unjustifiable frustration and anger for situations? Because every time there's like every time they end the show, she's always on, like, maybe it's not a depressive phase necessarily, but like maybe it is. Maybe it's her depressed as being an angry asshole.
Maybe, like I said, I don't think that I personally am not seeing what I understand to be like the traditional
Like clinical
depressive.
depression. Okay, that's
like
fair.
when I've seen her like mellow, that's what I'm saying. Like she's kind of like at baseline, and those are like the episodes of Frenemies where like she's been able to reflect like even on her own behavior and have what I would say is probably the closest to what we've seen as an honest conversation.
Okay,
from her.
so you're saying that like a lot of these are not necessarily open to interpretation from a clinical perspective. Like depressed relative to an individual, I might say when you're depressed, you're angry at me. But like when it's a clinical thing, it's like she's not clinically depressed, or you don't see clinically depressed behavior rather.
Yeah, so when you're saying like when you're diagnosing someone, like so this DSM is made by the association, I don't know, psychological something in America. I can't remember right now. But this is what people are using to diagnose the people, their clients. So this gives like an outline of like what's happening, but it's different for each person. And like, especially with my job working with adults with intellectual disabilities, they're diagnosed with these things too, but it manifests differently for them in different ways.
Yeah, right. Because they have intellectual disabilities. Okay. Is there any more from the bipolar, or what are we?
We don't have to get into it.
I'm fine with it. All right, you said no major depressive episodes.
I didn't say no, but like I personally don't think I've seen.
You haven't seen one publicly, and like that's what we're being able to base it off of. Is like, does she have these? It's possible that she has them in private.
Most definitely.
And that she doesn't put it out there because there is a toxic aspect of social media where people feel like they have to present the best of themselves to everybody,
definitely.
and they don't share the worst of themselves, and it actually snowballs, and viewers some viewers, especially younger viewers, will look at that and go, wow, this person's life is perfect, and it'll have like this snowball effect on people's mentalities and self-esteem. So for sure. And it's unfortunate because a lot of, I think, influencers validate themselves based off their audience positively, but when they're in a negative space, they don't really have people to express that to in a healthy fashion. And that fucks up the creator, and then it fucks up all the people that are following them. Because if you did express that kind of stuff, it also might be kind of a bad thing, because then you get into this whole parasocial relationship where you really shouldn't be super personalizing your audience. So yeah. Anyway, tangent.
So the other thing, we don't have to like go through the page, but I'm just gonna go over dissociative identity disorder.
Page. What are you talking about? I know that you're worried that I have to raid in World of Warcraft, but I don't give a fuck. Fuck World of Warcraft, okay?
Which number did you type in?
291.
You were
328.
328.
Maybe she has
hey, look,
skin
skin picking disorder.
Hey, Trisha, do you pick your skin?
I was saying for me.
Okay, dissociative disorders. Okay, so dissociative identity disorder right here. So here we go. Boom. Bang. Let's get her done.
Get her done.
Yeah, go ahead. Want me to read this?
Yeah.
Oh, so dissociative identity disorder, diagnostic criteria. Do I need to read this now? Disruption of identity. What are you, my teacher? Oh, you read it.
Maybe.
Oh, okay. Oh, well, that's inappropriate for the stream. Disruption of identity characterized by two or more distinct personality states, which may be described in some cultures as an experience of possession. Interesting that they identify cultures. Oh, possession. Interesting. Sorry. The disruption in identity involves marked discontinuity in sense of self and sense of agency, accompanied by related alterations in affect, behavior, consciousness, memory, perception, cognition, and/or sensory motor functioning. These signs and symptoms may be observed by others or reported by the individual. What does that mean?
So people having alters.
Oh, I have an original character.
What?
That's what we call those OCs. Guys, I wasn't really the racist. It was my OC.
That's a thing?
That's what we meme. Like when JS said the N-word, we were like, no, it's just JS's OC. It was a joke.
Oh.
Like, that's the joke. Because some people are like, oh, it's my original character. It's just a fucking meme. Sorry, guys. Okay, so
that's like actually funny, because I feel like it's more appropriate to like a lot of people, like when they drink and they get drunk, they'll be like, oh, like that wasn't me, it was Becky.
Yeah, right.
You know?
Yeah, right. But that's just really you not taking accountability for your terrible actions. You know? Don't get drunk, guys. It's bad for your soul.
Drinking's bad for you.
Drinking is bad for you. Do it at home with a loved one, and then do it anyway. So, do we think that Trisha has Trisha doesn't have an alter? No, she doesn't
switch and alters. Like, this is dissociative identity disorder is actually very interesting, because usually what it is people have alters that like represent like a certain trauma in their life.
Interesting.
So
Trisha just isn't.
That's why people with dissociative identity disorder, like they have like the different roles of like the protector and like stuff like this, and it typically aligns with traumas that they had throughout their life.
Okay.
Trisha's had trauma.
But that doesn't, and a lot of people have trauma.
But does she have dissociative identity disorder? No. Her sitting there and going like this and going into a blank stare. That's not her switching.
That's just her being dumb.
Yeah. I find it very interesting that this is such a rare psychological disorder, and so many people on TikTok have it. It's actually really interesting how all of them happen to find TikTok and were able to express themselves.
Yeah, no, it's almost as if they're lying. But of course, you can't invalidate somebody's experience, and it's a HIPAA violation to say, do you really have DID? We can never really find out. So by the way, guys, I have dissociative identity disorder. I'm a werewolf. I'm sorry for anybody who has that and is watching and you appreciate my content. Sorry, it wasn't invalidating you. It was invalidating furries or something. I don't know. Let's move on. So recurrent gaps in the recall of everyday events, important information, and or traumatic events that are inconsistent with ordinary forget.
So that's essentially they're talking about disassociating.
What do you
You're
mean?
going through everyday life and you're just clocked out.
Sometimes I do that. I'm in the shower and I forgot I washed my butt. I'm not kidding.
You're just in deep thought. I wouldn't say that you're like really dissociating.
I know.
That's like going like to school and like.
I feel like everybody does that.
Like I wasn't in that entire class.
Right.
Like, I did not comprehend one thing happening for that hour and a half.
Yeah, right. I feel like people do that all the time in the shower. Like you clean yourself and then you're like, did I wash my hair? Because you're just thinking about something that's going on. The shower thoughts.
Exactly. You're like thinking here. You're just completely not present.
Yeah, right.
Like you
Wouldn't
don't
it be cool
remember.
If you could do that though, autopilot mode, and then you just wake up and like all the shitty things that you had to do for the day are done.
Yeah, but that's the thing though, is like you're not doing that.
From like a simulation perspective. You're right. Anyway, sorry, it's going off a tangent there. My bad, guys. I'm a little ignorant. All right, the symptoms cause. So we don't think that she has that.
No. Trisha does not have DID.
Okay.
So
Well, the symptoms cause clinically significant distress or impairment in social, occupational, or other important areas of functioning. She doesn't have those symptoms.
No.
Okay. The disturbance is not normal part of broadly accepted culture or religious practice, right? Like I just said, it's actually very normal for people to do shower thoughts or shower poops. Okay. The disturbance is not, okay, we already did that. The symptoms are not attributable to psychological factors of substance, e.g. blackouts or chaotic. Okay, so we don't have that.
No.
Okay, during alcohol intoxication. Okay, so great. So did we move through that?
Yeah, so those are everything that she has said that she has.
Those ones aren't.
We're just going to go over this.
Okay.
No, this one. So before we get into what I truly think that Trisha may be able to be diagnosed with, like I've been talking shit about Trisha. You know, we've been saying mean jokes. I truly dislike Trisha.
Are they mean if they're true?
I think, well, no, like I want to be completely honest and transparent right now. I think that she's a bad person. I think that she is somewhat self-aware of things that she's doing, and that she, you know, she's just like going through a tornado through life and people that actually wind up caring about her. And I don't trust her at all.
Well,
I do think that she does have mental health issues. She has trauma. And I think that there are things that, you know, she should find like within herself and get treatment for, and, you know, really like deal with those things.
I have to say, and for one thing, I say this
a half hour till the raid.
Okay. Sorry, guys. 1 second. I forgot about that. Okay, sorry, that's my World of Warcraft.
Yo, boxing match? I would kill her.
Okay.
I wouldn't. I would be able to beat her up.
And that's the flavorful language. What I wanted to say is one of the least ableist things that you can think is that people with disabilities are people first, disability second. And what that means is that it's just because somebody has something that we can say, okay, I understand why you may be exhibiting behavior, doesn't justify it fully and doesn't mean that they get to be off the hook for that particular behavior, right? It's across the board, right? We can understand it. We can give them a little bit of, cut them some slack, but at the end of the day, Trisha doesn't really seem to be working on any of her shit. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's just not what I've seen. I think that Trisha is a very shallow individual. It's very easy to look at her and say she's very ignorant and very stupid, and in general. And most people look at her as a walking warning sign and don't develop personal relationships, because we're smarter than that. But the people who don't, or ignore those signs, like Ethan, when they allow her to enter their brain, she is so good at manipulating like softies. Does that sound better? People who are willing to give her a chance, and she just gaslights the fuck out of them constantly with little jabs. And I think that like she's very dumb and ignorant, and like everybody knows it. But the people give her a chance, she really fucks them up immensely, like Ethan.
So I want you to read that first sentence under diagnostic criteria. We're looking at borderline personality disorder.
Okay, excuse me. Oh, baby, young. Sorry. A pervasive pattern of instability of interpersonal relationships, self-image, and affects, and marked impulsivity beginning by early adulthood and present in a variety of contexts, and indicative by 5 or more of the following. That is Trisha Paytas.
I told you.
All right, so I think that we figured it out, guys. Our unofficial, because we can't give diagnoses. The diagnosis is borderline personality disorder.
So
I'm already done. We're done with the podcast. So, guy.
I want you to read through the thing.
All right. So frantic, number 1. So 5 or more of the following. So frantic efforts to avoid real or imagined abandonment. Does she have that?
Everybody hates me.
Yes. Okay. Fair enough. Everybody hates me, even though she's full of shit.
So frantic efforts to avoid it. And I think that for Trisha, that may manifest by everybody hates me, blah, blah, blah. But she creates everyone hating her. Remember the other day during your stream, I was in the chat while I was at work and I said, she says, I keep on doing things and people hate me. And I said she needs to change the language to do, I keep doing things to make people hate me.
Yeah, right. Like she thinks that like she does something regardless of what it is and people hate her, but it's unjustifiable rather than understanding that it is her fault and taking accountability. Okay. A pattern of unstable and intense interpersonal relationships characterized by alternating between extremes of idealization and devalues. Oh, wow. Wow. That's her relationship with Ethan.
Yeah, one of the examples.
Every other day, it's like, oh, you're so sexy and hot and I want to fuck you. And then the other day is like, we were never friends and you're a loser and I hate you. Jesus Christ. This is intense. Trisha, honey, get a real therapist. All right. 3, identity disturbance. Markedly and persistently unstable self-image or sense of self. Oh my God, Trisha has BPD.
So we're 3 for 3.
Holy
right now,
shit!
I would say.
Impulsivity in at least 2 areas that are potentially self-damaging, e.g., spending.
Spending? You mean on?
Oh my God!
Pocketbooks that could buy us a house?
Yeah, $80,000 pocketbooks. Spending, sex. OnlyFans, obviously. Substance abuse. I don't really know if we have.
She has talked about it.
Okay,
she's talked about substance abuse on Frenemies.
Reckless driving. She's a woman. Binge eating. She does binge eat all the time.
She constantly and calls it mukbanging.
Yup. And it's like socially
reinforced social behavior from views.
Oh my God. Woo. Like, holy shit. 5, reoccurring suicidal behavior, gestures, or threats. I don't know if she has that.
She was in the hospital. She talked about it. She overdosed. She took too many pills to kill herself.
All right. So affective instability due to marked reactivity of mood. Irritability. Okay. I think that's true.
Intense episodic dysphoria, irritability, or anxiety, usually lasting a few hours and only rarely more than a few days. That one I'm not sure about just because there's a lot of words that sound the same and I'm getting confused.
I feel that. I respect that. Chronic feelings of emptiness. Trisha has to be a walking like chronic feeling of emptiness. Honestly,
I think we have evidence of that. She talks a lot about her failed relationships, how everyone like in her life has failed her in some way. How she's always chasing something. You know, all of her relationships, her romantic relationships, those men have like never truly loved her.
That's right. I think that she knows that too. And I think that's what bothers her about Ethan is like he won't fuck her. And like her love to her is that like, oh, would you fuck me?
I think like Trisha's used to being a walking sex doll, and with that, men are pigs, and I would say that majority of men are just going to go for her no matter what. So for her to have someone who's like a genuinely like nice and decent person, I would say, and like your everyday guy being like, yeah, no, I'm not interested. I would imagine that for her, that would be like an identity. I can't say
identity crisis. Yeah. That's got to be shattering. Inappropriate, intense anger or difficulty controlling anger. Yeah, that sounds like her.
Frenemies.
Frequently displays of temporary constant anger, recurrent physical fights. She also said I think she fought Moses at one point. I might be wrong about that. I don't know.
I think she hit him once, but I wouldn't characterize that in this.
Right. Okay. And then transient, self-related paranoid idealization or severe dissociative symptoms. I don't really know what that means.
I don't really know. So like dissociative symptoms, like that's what we were talking about. I mean, those are the things that kind of fit in that schizoaffective disorder.
Okay.
I wouldn't necessarily that I've seen behavior that matches that, but for borderline personality disorder, the person's going to exhibit 5 or more.
I think that
we
have at least 9. No, we have like 7. I think at least
1, 2, 3.
Yeah,
4,
5.
5.
And we didn't know some of them.
we said. Oh, well, we already got to 5. We don't even have to move on.
No, we don't. We did all of them. But, like, she has most of them. And except for the ones we don't really know. Because
No, that's what I'm saying. I was reading the ones that she matched with. She matches with 1 through 5.
Yeah, so I really think that she does have borderline personality disorder. Now, listen, again, we're not fancy doctors. She does have a master's degree in psychology. She's a behavioral specialist. Social work, excuse me. She's a behavioral specialist. She has to like understand like the symptoms and whatnot.
And basically what my job is, it's very different than like a therapist or something, but I work with people with intellectual disabilities, and what my job is
an intellectual disability.
No.
I'm
what
sorry.
my job is to write the plans essentially
disabilities.
that will help staff work with the people we support through their behaviors. So I need to know like, okay, if this person has adjustment disorder with disturbance of conduct, that's going to impact their stress level and stuff like that. So what coping mechanisms am I going to tell staff to teach them to deal with their enhanced level of stress?
Right.
That's what my job is.
That makes sense.
So just to talk about borderline personality disorder a little bit, during one of my internships, I worked with a person who I respect a lot. I learned a lot from him.
It was me.
One of the people, one of the clients that we had, you know, she was putting everyone through the ringer. Like I actually, like, you know, like the meltdown I had the morning of the audit, I had a meltdown. I had a meltdown like that after working with this girl. And so my supervisor was like, I think that she has borderline personality disorder. And he was explaining to me how difficult it is to work with people with this diagnosis. And one of the reasons for that is that they exhibit a lot of behaviors. They don't like truly like internalize, I guess, like social actions.
Okay.
Or whatnot. And they do a lot of like reflecting. So, you know, if they see someone desirable or someone that they want to be friends with, they'll exhibit a lot of the same behaviors as that person. And that could come in the form of like listening to the same music as them or stuff like that. But they have all these things going on inside them where like they have the like internalized sense of that people are going to abandon them and stuff like that. And I don't know how to explain it the best way, but it's basically almost like they'll suck you in and then like fucking destroy your life.
Okay, like a fucking vortex.
And that might be a little drastic.
No, but it makes sense. Like they latch onto somebody that they like. They experience some of their personalities. They kind of invade their personal space, and then part of them might think, "Well, this is going to be ruined anyway. Let me ruin it," and they just start to drain the person through like a whirlpool. And like that sounds like Trisha Paytas' relationship. She has very just parasitic relationships with people. Now, what are the ways do you think that in which she like copies Ethan?
I don't really know. I think when it comes to Ethan and Trisha, there's so many dynamics going on that like I don't think that like we really take all of it into consideration.
She's a mess, is what
like,
you're saying.
No, well, she is, but I think that like the biggest I don't know how to explain it, but basically about her being with Moses.
Right.
That's Ethan's brother-in-law. Their family is from Israel, right?
Do you think that the only reason that she's with Moses is because she wants to be with Ethan and connected to him in some way?
No, I think that's a little drastic.
Do you think that Moses is a trans man?
I've never really heard Moses speak about anything.
I don't know why I asked that. I'm sorry.
I don't know either.
Somebody in the chat said that Moses puts on a strap on and covers Trisha's head with a bag, and that's the only way that he's able to do it. So I think I'm a little burnt out from my earlier stream, and I'm a little bit silly right now. Sorry, continue.
I think that the family dynamic they have going on is a lot. I think, you know, like Trisha, if you look at all of the people she's dated, none of them like match. Like you have a type.
Yeah.
I
big, thick brunettes.
Yeah.
Oh my god, it's my only type. Only woman I've ever been with.
They're so annoying. And I would say I generally have a type as well.
Big,
Trisha's
thick brunettes is her type as well.
Yeah. Trisha's kind of been like all over the place. Thick. And you know, like sometimes that works like for people, but I don't know, with Moses it kind of just felt like she was on to the next thing. I don't know.
You think so? You think that there's like no like typecasting? Because she does seem to have actually similar interests in you, almost like kind of like men that like are kind of like brunette Jewish people. Like,
have you seen Jason? No, but that's the
No,
thing.
but,
Like
for
Jewish
you.
people, she's talking about. Oh, me, I love that.
Yeah, like you like Amish looking, like curl Jew kind of like, or Jewish thing. I'm half ethnic Jew, right? So like that's what you're into. I'm saying that like she seems to express that she likes Ethan for the same reason. Chubbier boys, like kind of like Jewish. She seems to have like a Jewish fetish, and Moses doesn't match.
No, but that's
Ethan.
what I'm saying.
Or are you saying that that's just like her trying to latch onto him?
Yeah, no, like the first time I remember Trisha is, first of all, she was the fat Jessica Simpson, which she wasn't even fat. But she was the fat Jessica Simpson in the Eminem music video. She was on Ellen for Talking Fast. I remember her reading a book. Oh my God. And like I was never like a Trisha fan, but like I followed her stuff through the years. She's never once talked about Jewish men. This is the Moses thing.
So she might be latching onto Ethan, or she might be trying to convince herself that Moses is the one.
Maybe.
Like maybe she's like, yeah, I've always loved Jewish men, and like never really has, and she's trying to really convince herself that she does, and like just constantly reinforcing it like over and over and over. Like, I love Jewish men, love Jewish men. Okay. And
actually, you asked me if I think Trisha mimics Ethan. Someone said in the chat, like Ethan seems to be mimicking Trisha. I think he definitely took on more of her.
That's a good point.
Behavior than she
because
did his.
He definitely became a very preachy SJW, which is that's what Trisha pretends to be. But I think that comes more from Ethan pandering to an audience rather than it does picking up on Trisha.
Yeah, no, I think he was like, she obviously is someone that's like a lot of energy to deal with, I think. And I think he was like playing to her a little bit to keep things going.
Sure.
If that makes sense.
I think he's also a little bit of a panderer to audiences that will accept him.
Okay, yeah, I don't really.
Maybe that's just my frustrations with Ethan. I don't know. I think, did we get most of what we needed to get?
Yeah, I think we're done with Trisha.
Well, one thing I want to end off with is somebody had asked in the chat something to the capacity of, do you think that the fame has an impact? I wanted to say one thing that I don't think that we talk about enough when it comes to social media and some kind of mental health diagnosis. I've been like famous for like a year now, and like it definitely weighs on you mentally. I hate like saying that it has an impact on my mental health, because honestly as a man, I don't like to make excuses for like and shit, if that makes any sense. I don't like to be like, oh my God, this has an impact on me. It sounds very weak, but it kind of does have an impact on your mental health. And I would consider myself more resilient than most. I think that this is really the first generation of social media individuals getting big and having like the unique problems of like promoting the best of yourself while being left to defend for yourself on the worst of yourself, and having like these parasocial relationships in much closer, more connected ways, because you can have direct interactivity with your fans and with content creators and whatnot in a way that creates a lot of different types of stress. I think this is the first generation of people like that. And because we haven't really accepted it, I don't think that we look at the internet as an environment. But everybody, all diagnoses are both genetic and environmental in some capacity. And the internet is an environment, and it absolutely has a profound impact on people depending on how much they insert themselves into it. And so I would say that, like, yeah, all of her issues may even have been created through this internet culture that we have now. I think that Trisha is the best example of a social media science experiment.
Yeah.
And like we're seeing the worst factors all culminated into Trisha Paytas. I feel bad for her when you look at it like that.
No, I was just gonna say, we've talked a lot of shit today, and like part of me feels bad because I don't like to be a mean person, but like
at the end of the day, girl. Well, at the end of the day, though, she has gotten considerable, like a lot of rope to give her. And she hanged herself, right? Like Frenemies was a campaign to for her to come back. Well, I forget the verbiage I used, but like that was a whole like campaign to make her look better, and she blew it, and it was her fault. And she doesn't seem to be like truly working on herself. It seems like she works on herself when she feels like it, and then she falls off. And then she goes back.
She works on herself, depending on the response that she gets.
Yeah, that's true too. That's true as well. So. I just bit my lip and it hurts. Thank you very much, guys, for watching the podcast. It's metaphorical. The hanging of yourself is metaphorical. All right, guys. Jeez. Redemption arc.
Redemption arc.
End of podcast.
Wait, someone asked me how I got into the field. Could I answer it quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
I went into school to be a teacher. And then I like came home and did community college and stuff. And I did, I think, 8 years of LGBT work. And I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I asked my mom and she told me to be a social worker. So that's what I went to school for. And then I thought no one would hire me because I only had experience in the LGBT community. So I got a job as a DSP with my agency. And then I got my master's. And 4 months later, 3 or 4 months, I was promoted to behavior specialist.
Yeah, right. And then, fun fact, she still doesn't have she has to take a test.
I have to get my license still.
To finish her license. She's qualified for her job, but she's working a job that also gives her qualifications for her license. So she would be a year in if she had gotten it already, and she keeps putting it off.
It's been a lot of stress.
A lot of stress. Coronavirus. That's it.
Oh, that's it.
That's it. All right, guys. I love you very much. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next podcast episode when we talk about
something. I actually have an idea written down.
Hamburgers.
No, this is vanilla and cinnamon. Okay. We'll talk about it. He'll announce it later.
Well, we're not going to announce. We have theoretical ideas. This one says, Caitlyn Jenner. Invalidated by trans community. People asked me about this
Someone
today.
said about it during the chat,
because
and I was like,
a whole situation.
Let's talk about it.
Maybe we will talk about that, guys. Maybe next time. All right, guys. I love you very much.
Yes, to raid. Bye.
Love you. Bye. Hey everyone, if you like that video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And don't forget to follow my Twitch, Instagram, Twitter, Discord, and TikTok. All links are in the description. Also, check out my Patreon if you'd like to support me even more than you already do. Thank you so much, everyone. I love you all.